My name is Devin Roy, and I've been leading and managing teams for more than 30 years. I have expertise in coaching, interrogation, and strategy development. Most companies use a morning huddle to connect with their teams, to disseminate information, and to create alignment. I will share with you proven real-world strategies and techniques that will help you be more successful. So open your minds, listen closely. The Morning Huddle starts now. All right, hello everyone. Welcome to the Morning Huddle. I'm your host, Devin Roy, for those of you who don't know me. Just a little bit about myself. I've been in leadership roles for, I would say, since I was a teenager. And since that time, I've been fascinated with the leader direct report dichotomy. And I've spent most of my retail, I spent most of my career in retail. I've held just about every position. I worked in 7 states. I've led teams as large as 700 members. And over the span of space and time, I've been a student and innovator of leadership philosophies, and I want to share those with you. And that's what today is about. First of all, this is my very first live podcast, so thank you for joining. If you want to check out the recorded podcast, you can go to my website at themorninghuddle.com. So check that out. I also wrote a book called The Anatomy of a Coaching Conversation, and it outlines an 8-step coaching model that is fortified by interrogation techniques. So it's pretty cool. So check it out. It's a good price at $4.99. It's also on the website at themorninghuddle.com. So today's agenda is leading in a post-pandemic climate. I know COVID-19 has been on everyone's mind. It has sucked the oxygen out of the room, and we need to have a conversation about that. And that's what today is all about. And so joining me on the show today to take a deeper dive into this conversation is singer-songwriter, actor, what else, did I miss anything? Business professional, Mik Haddad. Welcome to the show, Mik.
Hey, thank you.
Mik, you and I work in New York City. It's the epicenter for the coronavirus outbreak here in America. Mm-hmm. And so, we've got to do things differently when we go back to work. So I'm going to get your thoughts first on how do you think leading should look in this post-quarantine, post-pandemic climate?
Yeah, that's definitely something I've been thinking about. I think the initial thought I have is just the simplicity of how do we greet people. I'm someone who typically is a hi, how are you type of person. I say that to everyone. And I've been thinking that is not going to be a sufficient, way to greet people if I'm not prepared for what's going to come on the other end of that. And so, right. It might look like, hey, good to see you instead, because it's just not, I have to really understand how are you bears more weight than it did previous to COVID. And then the other thought I have is just how we lead ourselves. I think typically in workspaces, we think about leading ourselves and we say, show initiative. You need to be the first to do something or, be in charge of your own development. But now, you may go into the workforce and there may be less people, less resources. You may have more responsibility because of changes in structure in the company. So now leading yourself has to do with how do you manage your time better? How do you not become stressed with more responsibility and less people or less resources? So that's really
very good points. Very good points. Let's start with the first one. So the obligatory hi, how are you, right? I think we all do it, Mik. You're not just the only one guilty of that. And we do it because I think it's more of a reflexive thing. And we're not always prepared for someone to tell us really how they are feeling. And so empathy, an empathetic leader, I think, is going to be required. And if you're not an empathetic leader, you're going to have to figure that out, right? So how do we lead with empathy in this post-pandemic environment and really want to understand how people are doing? And why is that important? Some people probably are thinking, I don't want to deal with anyone's personal issues.
Yeah.
I've got my own to deal with, right?
Right.
But when we're leaders of people, we have a whole different responsibility. We are in charge of that individual's development, and we're in charge of their care while they're at work with us. And so if they're not prepared to come in and do what's required of them, then it's hard for us to hold them accountable. So it starts with us understanding, are they ready to meet the challenges? How do we meet them where they are, right?
Yeah.
So you bring up a very good point. So, the perfunctory how are you needs to take on a whole different meaning. To really need to dig deeper into people's psyche and what they're dealing with and have a conversation. Now, we're not psychologists, right?
Right.
So I'm not telling you to sit them on a couch and psychoanalyze them.
Right.
But we do need to have dialogue with people and empathize, because we're all going through this and we can all share our stories. And I think that's important, right? Is that when we come back to work, that we are allowed to share our stories, because this pandemic can feel so isolating. It can feel as if we're the only ones going through it because we are apart and separated by design, by the way. So when we come back together, we've got to share those stories and talk through it, the pain as well, because if we don't do that, people will get stuck in that moment, right? And never will progress beyond it. So as leaders, it's our job to help people move along that curve so that we can have a much more productive workforce. You also talked about leading self. Most organizations are going to go back in a phased approach. They're not going to bring back the entire workforce, right? Mm-hmm. So for those that will be returning to work, what is required of you? You're going to be coming back to work with a whole new purpose. Yeah. Because your job is to not just do the best job for yourself, but to do the best job for the people who are to follow. Because if you don't return back to the revenue that you had prior to this, then the company won't be able to bring on the other or phase in the other workforce. Does that make sense? Right. Mm-hmm. So you're going to work now with a whole different purpose. And so leading self does take on a whole new meaning. Are you familiar with the fable, The Scorpion and the Frog?
Nope.
You're not? No. Is anyone out there familiar with the fable, The Scorpion and the Frog? Okay, let me tell you about the fable. Basically, the scorpion hitches a ride on the back of a frog so that the scorpion can cross the river, right? Mm-hmm. But it's in the scorpion's nature to do what? To kill, right? Yeah. Right? And the scorpion can't swim, obviously, and so if it kills the frog, what happens? They both die, right? So the scorpion hitches a ride on the frog, and halfway across the river, he stings the frog, and they both die as a result. So why do I bring this up? I think this is analogous to leadership. And let me explain why. The leader is a scorpion. And this fable is about self-interest. Yeah. Okay? And self-interest can sometimes be a dirty word, but it doesn't have to be. But in this example, the leader is riding the frog, the team, if you will, right, to get across the river. And crossing the river is analogous to success. Right? But sometimes as a leader, we do things that are not within our own self-interest. We don't understand that at the time. We think it is in our self-interest, but it's not. And we end up being detrimental to the team, which is detrimental to not just the team's success, but to our success as well. So the point is, in this post-pandemic climate, we can't go back the way we were. We can't lead the way we did 3 months ago. Yeah. We've got to lead differently. We've got to be connected with our teams. We've got to help them. We've got to invest in them. We've got to be more in tune to what's happening with our teams, right? Yeah. So we can help them cross the river. And if they cross the river, we're on their back. That means we cross the river, so we're all successful in the end. Yeah. So now you know the fable of the scorpion and the frog.
Yeah. Thank you.
So let's talk about leading self some more. What are thoughts? Let's go to the audience first of all. Let's try this. Now this is my first time doing this, everyone, so bear with me. But if you have any thoughts, anyone have thoughts on how to lead differently in this post-pandemic climate? Let's see if we get any comments. Yeah. Thank you, by the way.
Of course.
Thank you, Isabel.
We have people still joining.
There's Karen. Hi, Karen.
Oh, can you repeat the question, Devin?
Yes, can you hear me now? Before I repeat the question, let me.
Yeah, I can hear you on my end. But
The question is, how do we lead differently in this post-pandemic climate? I heard someone say we have to lead empathetically, and that's absolutely correct. Hi, Karen. Perfect. Thank you. So while we're waiting for some check-in with the staff more, yeah, motivating the team, giving positive feedback when they are doing well. Perfect. You have to lead the team with a team purpose. Love that.
Yeah.
Be adaptable to change, of course. Lead with health first. Okay, yeah, that's going to be much more important. I think we have to start the day differently. Okay, how different? In what way? I think we need to learn how to really... Go ahead, you read that.
I think we need to learn how to really listen to our team and be more motivated. Lead with understanding there's new norm, definitely.
So you're on the subway. 3 months ago, what did you typically think about as you were coming to work?
What I need to get done. Actually, I was probably starting my work on the train. Already starting to answer emails, already starting to figure out, what my touch base in the morning was going to look like, what I was going to ask my managers, what a check-in would look like, typically of results the day before. But I was already working on the train.
Got it. So, again, this post-pandemic climate, that's going to have to change, right?
Definitely.
So what we prioritize, we always prioritize, and we always give lip services. We would say people over process, but be honest, we always prioritize process over people, right?
Yes.
Let's just be honest about it.
Yeah, it's true.
And so, what we're thinking about on our commute to work, we're thinking about the process. We're thinking about tactics and strategy. Yep. And how much time are we thinking about the people? I mean, really thinking about the people. Yeah. So in our commute to work, and this goes back to the fable of the scorpion and the frog, we do so at our own peril, right? When we don't think about our teams and what they're going through. And when we don't make that personal investment in them, we don't try to understand how they've been personally impacted by this pandemic, right?
Yep.
So we got to be thinking about, how am I going to engage the team? How am I going to make it a workplace that allows for the sharing of your experiences? We didn't do that before, right? We were focused on the numbers. The morning huddle was about the numbers.
Yeah.
And how we did yesterday, right?
Yep.
But the morning huddle needs to be about the people and how you did yesterday, how you felt yesterday, how you're doing today. Yeah. And we're going to get through this together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that it makes so much sense. I think even figuring out what can we offer, what do we know about what will be available for when people are sharing those concerns that we now want to prioritize. What do we know, what can we say back, or is it going to be kind of talking to a wall? So just understanding the severity of what people might say and understanding what things does the company have, what resources do they have. Sometimes people just want a listening ear, but what else can you offer that is a real resource that may be in your company? And I think a lot of us don't even know. We didn't know those answers until now, when we had to explore them for ourselves. We're learning what our company does or does not offer in a time of, a pandemic.
Right. All right, good point. Let's see if we have any questions from the audience.
We missed some comments. I wrote some stuff down. Somebody was saying, the idea of having a total staff meeting, will be different because those things can't happen going back to work, which I thought was a good point. being adaptable to change.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're going to have to leverage technology to help us stay connected. You know, much like what we're doing today, we are talking with 23 other people and sharing a message. And when we get back to the workforce, we're going to have to do something very similar to this. So questions you guys have? That's Brenda saying sharing the concerns.
Yeah, I agree, Jess. Sharing, using Zoom and different platforms are helpful.
We're going to have to be wearing masks now, right?
Probably, yeah.
It absolutely will be unique in the beauty store.
Yeah.
And for those of you who may not understand what we're talking about, you know, we work in retail and in beauty. It's going to be a different experience for the customer, right? So it's perhaps the most intimate you will get with the customer when they come and shop in the beauty department, because you are, or you were, you know, touching their face and getting very close to them. And so those days are gone. So what does relationship selling look like? And we could spend another hour on that, but relationship selling is going to change, right?
Yeah.
You know, and we've got to get used to wearing, looking at people wearing a mask, because your smile tells a lot about you, right?
Yeah.
The smile is the first thing people look at typically, right? Because it says I'm approachable or I'm not approachable.
Yeah, we've coached to that.
Absolutely. Those nonverbal cues, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to be looking at a mask now. And we're going to have to get really good at reading people's eyes, because that tells us a story as well. Now, I'm not going to go into this, but I do teach what's called neurolinguistics.
We have a question.
Yes, you could definitely smile with your eyes. You're absolutely right. But it's even deeper than that. Neurolinguistics talks about the patterns that eyes will move in relative to the brain activity. And so if I ask a question, depending on the question I'm asking, and your eyes look up and to the left, that means that you're recalling. If you look up and to the right, that means you're creating. And if you do those things in that sequence, that means you're about to lie to me. And so it's going to be important that, you know, we're able to pick up on other skill sets so that we can read the situation and have a greater degree of emotional intelligence about how we lead in the future.
Yeah.
We can coach the body language as well. Absolutely. That's so important. Body language is something, again, I used to interrogate people for a living, and I don't do that anymore, but that was a key component to how we would interpret the situation that we were in and how we would guide the conversation. So what are your thoughts, Mik, on, I probably will never see your smile again, Mik. I will only look at you wearing a mask. What are your thoughts on that?
To be completely honest, it's just weird. It's, it feels so abnormal, and I know it's the new normal and all these things, but it just, one of the reasons why I work in the industry I work in is because I love interacting with people in all the ways that typically came. So talking to people, looking at people's body language, but obviously engaging in conversation. So it's just going to be a weird thing. I don't think that it'll be comfortable for a long time. And hopefully it won't have to be a long time, but I'm not happy about it. I want to stay safe and I wanted others to be safe, but it just, kind of sucks.
Yeah, it does. It does. It really does. And it's okay to admit that. It's okay to say it. Now, I wouldn't say it to my team.
Right.
So as leaders, we're going to have to find, resources and people that we can talk to about these things, because we can't keep it bottled up, right? We've got to vent our emotions as well as the emotions of our team. But we can't come to work with all that pent up, right?
Yeah.
That pent up angst, or anxiety or emotions, we've got to release it somewhere, but we can't release it on our teams, and we've got to really understand that.
Right.
We have got to be the motivator in chief when it comes to how we lead our team, right? We have to be the consoler. We can't say, oh, woe is me, because then who is leading them, right? So we've got to find folks that can help us do that.
Definitely.
Your support system.
Mm-hmm. Someone asked, new in my leadership position before COVID, so hardly got enough time to connect with my team. How do we connect post-COVID?
Oh, I think it's excellent. I think it's a perfect opportunity for you to say, hey, we're all making it up. And I got to tell you something. People who have been in leadership roles for years are now starting over in some respect. So you're almost caught up to all of us, right? So we're making it up as we go here. So I think sometimes for new leaders, we have this misconception that we have to go into positions as if we know everything, right?
Yeah.
And we're not vulnerable. So this is a great time to be vulnerable and say, I don't have all the answers. And so, but you're a smart person, right? Because you're in that leadership role.
Exactly.
But you don't have to have all the answers. You know what ideation is? Ideation is the process of allowing, I'm going to give you my interpretation, allowing the team to participate in the creation of ideas, strategies, and whatever. So I think it's important that we have them be participants in what the move forward looks like, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The way forward, they have to, you can't just give them the prescribed, or the prescription, I should say, for what it looks like. They have to participate in creating those strategies and tactics. So I think as a new leader, I think it's a perfect opportunity for you to be vulnerable, to include your team, to be smart, to lean into your strengths, and also take the counsel of people who have been doing this for a while.
Yeah, that's good.
What other questions are out there?
No questions, but we had a comment about, I think we all have to adapt to the new normal, accept it as leaders, and coach our teams the same way and look at that in a positive way, which I completely agree with.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Marvella.
What other comments do you guys have?
Good point. Great answer.
Yeah, we're going to have to sell. We work in retail. Most of that's on this live Instagram. We work in retail, so we're going to have to sell differently, right? We're going to, again, customers are going to have some trepidation about coming back into the store. Physical contact. We're going to have people, particularly in New York City, on both ends of the spectrum. We're going to have those who, I'm not wearing a mask, and very defiant about everything that's happening. We have those who are so cautious. They may come in a hazmat suit. We're going to have all types coming into the stores, right? Mm-hmm. I'm being facetious somewhat.
Yeah.
And we have to be able to deal with those individuals now. Selling is taking on a whole new meaning. And so the leader has to lead by example and demonstrate those skills by how we treat our people. And that will translate into how they treat our customers, right?
Yeah.
But selling is going to be completely different. It's going to be through mediums like this, Instagram. It's going to be through Zoom, whatever. We're going to be doing a lot more selling electronically rather than we were doing face to face. So we've got to be prepared for that new normal. What other comments are out there?
Someone asked, what is your biggest concern going back?
My biggest concern is that people won't change. Um, it really is. I've heard too many people say, go back to normal. There is no going back to normal. I think Mother Nature gave us this pause for a reason.
Yeah.
I'm not getting to climate change and all those sorts of things, but if you look at it, the oceans are clearing up. The air pollution is down. So, right?
Yep.
And if we're not understanding what this moment means, we do so again at our own peril. That's my biggest fear. People are going to try to go back to what's comfortable, and because they hate being uncomfortable. But this pandemic is making us all uncomfortable. We just need to embrace that and see the opportunities that this is giving us, as opposed to the obstacles. You know, I'm sitting here on the podcast with all of you because of this pandemic.
Yeah.
I would not have done this otherwise. I was content with what I was doing. I was doing the morning huddle every day at work,
right.
but I couldn't do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But I have all this energy and all these thoughts in my head. I have to get out somehow. And so we've got to see the opportunity that this is creating for us, and not see it as something that's tragic. Well, there has been tragedy, I guess, you know, as a part of this, but we've got to see the positive in this. What are the thoughts?
I think my biggest concern going back is it's actually not about safety. I think generally speaking, like we live in New York City, we work in a place that holds hundreds of people. We run the risk of getting into severe danger every single day. So yes, we are in a pandemic and more people have been kind of taken out of their comfort zone, but typically like we run that risk every day. So I feel like if it's safe to open up, then I feel safe going to work. My concern lies more around the engagement of my team. You know, when people have gone through extreme trauma and have experienced that, now we're asking them to, you know, abide by all these new rules and still sell and do all these things. It really concerns around how do I really engage them back with the company? How do I engage them with us as leaders? And I think that's going to be difficult. So my concern.
You're absolutely right. Go ahead, I cut you off.
No. That was just that's what my concern is.
You're 100% right. And I think it goes back to what we talked about in the very beginning. You've got to vent emotion. And so there's going to be a whole lot of emotion coming at you when people return to work.
Yeah.
There's almost 700 people on that sales floor.
Yeah.
In beauty alone.
I was going to say
and so and on the floor where you're working. So think about the individual stories, the individual experiences of the 3,000 people in that building total.
Yeah.
Coming at you. And how do we manage those emotions? Because it's going to be palpable, right?
Yeah.
So again, I think the first step has to be, it can't be, okay, we're all returned to work. We figure out a 10-step process for how we're going to stay safe and keep our customers safe and how we're going to sell and do things differently. Here it is. Read it. Make sure you understand it. If you have questions, come see me. That's not effective. That won't work, right?
Right.
That may have worked 3 months ago, but it won't work going forward. It has to be, tell me your story. Talk to me about your experiences with COVID-19, right?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on how we move forward? Here's what the company came up with. Here's some guidelines. Talk to me about these guidelines. You know, I think we've got to move people along in the process again and vent the emotions that are pent up. Otherwise, they will get stuck and it just won't work. And we'll have this subculture that's growing in our building of people who are disgruntled, people who don't believe that we have their best interests at heart.
Yeah.
They're commiserating with one another. Then you'll see this groundswell, right? negativity. Why are we getting our results? What's happening? Well, we didn't do our due diligence. Again, back to the fable of the scorpion and the frog, right?
Yeah.
We stung the frog, right? And so we're not going to cross the river.
Yeah.
So it's in our nature to do what managers do, which is here's the prescribed format. Here's what we're going to do, team. Here's how we're going to be successful. Digest it. Let me know if you have questions. I'll get back to you, right?
Yeah.
That's what scorpions do. That's what managers do.
Yeah.
But what do leaders do coming out of a crisis? That's completely different.
Yeah.
Right?
Great point.
So, anyway, don't want to pontificate too much on that. So, what other comments do you have or questions?
Hi, Bradley. We have some people asking us specific questions about how are we going to force customers to wear a mask? What percentage of people will come back, and what's the pace? Some of these things we have answers to, and some of the things we don't. I think it's important. Will employees be required to be tested coming back? I think that you guys should remember that things are changing daily. So the plan that worked yesterday is not necessarily that's going to go forth tomorrow. So we don't have answers to all of these questions. Devin, do you want to speak on some of this?
No, we don't have answers to all those questions, and this is probably not the right forum to talk about that. But what I can say is that if you're working in New York City, you're going to be required to wear a mask. The workers are. And it's going to be strongly recommended that the consumers wear masks as well. I think we've got to not make ourselves crazy with this. Understand something. We were all in New York City in the month of March, up until March 17 or so, right? Mm-hmm. There is evidence that the coronavirus was spreading in the month of February in New York City, coming from Europe.
Yep.
And even some evidence in January, but really the spread was happening in February. It was happening in March as well. And I want you to think about that.
Yeah.
The spread has been mitigated. It is not spreading to the extent it was before we shut things down, right? Mm-hmm. How many of us got sick? How many of us showed symptoms? Mm-hmm. You have to not drive yourself crazy with this. You have to be smart.
Yeah.
How do you catch a virus? How do you catch a virus? By doing what? Touching your face, touching your mouth, touching the orifice, right? Nose, and even eyes, right? This is how you get sick, because you touch something that has the virus on it, and then you touch your face. So the personal behavior of the individual counts more than anything else. It counts more than what policies are in place at a location. It counts more than PPE, mask, or whatever you're wearing. Personal behavior of the individual, right, is 99.9% of prevention.
Wow. Yeah, that's good.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I touch something that has the virus on it and it's on my hand, am I sick? I'm not sick until I do this, right? So we've got to, and we should have been doing this all along.
Yeah.
We've got to wash our hands.
Right.
We have to sanitize. We've got to be clean. We became lazy. And I want you to go back to the point I was making. Mother Nature took a pause, right? And what happened to our climate? What has happened? I think this is analogous to what we're talking about, though.
Yeah.
It began to clean up. We were dirty. The climate was dirty, right? We didn't wash our hands.
Yeah.
We didn't protect ourselves.
Yeah.
If you go back and look at the work surfaces before we became cognizant of the virus, wasn't in very great condition, was it? Then we begin to clean up. Then we begin to use, hand sanitizer. And then we all stopped going to work and the climate got better. The climate began to heal somewhat. So think about those thoughts for a second, and what this moment really means. Okay? So when we go back to work, it's not about the PPE, it's about the individual, right? And what you do to protect yourself and others from being sick. So we didn't get sick at the height of it because we were cognizant of it. It was the top of our mind. Now it's been mitigated, right? Mm-hmm. Such that we can begin to go back to work. So I feel actually more comfortable going back to work now than I did back in March. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. That's a really, really good point. I love that you said our personal behavior, because I think that it goes into so many other areas, especially being in a time where a lot of people are home with their families, home by themselves. But, you know, I'm curious to think about what people are doing in the time. Like you said, I did the morning huddle every day at work, and now I needed something to do with that energy. So you created it as a podcast. And I think that that's all intentional.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, if everyone on this podcast is in a leadership capacity, you cannot tell you two words that are not synonymous: leadership and victimhood. You cannot be a victim and a leader at the same time, right? You abdicate your responsibility as a leader when you become a victim, because victims now need to be led by someone, right? Yeah. Okay. That's really so it's true. And so you've got to think about this. If you are feeling like a victim, you are not a leader. And I don't mean that to be curt. Please don't misunderstand. Yeah. The point I'm making is that if you are leaders of people, you have to have a different mindset. Yeah. You've got to figure out how to vent your emotion, how to get yourself in the right place so that you can go back to work and lead people to be productive, to be effective, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. To be safe. Because, you know, what is this all about? If we don't go back to work, you know, none of this means anything, right? We have to learn the lessons from this, right? Exactly. Right? And go back, you know, anew. Go back different. Right? Yeah. So it's almost like, you know, 40 days of rain. What happened? Right? Yeah. So I'm not trying to get biblical, but my point is... Come on, preach a sermon. My point is, you know, what happened after the 40 days of rain? Yeah, no, definitely. Right? Mm-hmm. So think about coronavirus in this same context, if you will. Yeah. And what is required of people who call themselves leaders? If you're in a leadership capacity, you're going to be tested in ways that you haven't been tested before. Say that. Right? Yeah. I think I'm not going to preach. I'm just going to say this one little thing. But I think that God has revealed to me in this time is my responsibility to the environment, and seeing the world clean up and things heal and like waterways clean up and all this stuff happening where like the earth is breathing again. I thought, wow, you really need to watch yourself when you go back into the world as far as being resourceful and trying to sustain energy, which I'm the first to admit. I'm not into like environmental anything. Like I don't pay any attention. I'm not trying to save paper. I'm not trying to do none of that. And I really thought differently, like, wow, I am not just, we think that the earth is like always going to have resources and it replenishes itself. And it's just like, no, we bear responsibility on that. You know, we're not there to just take it. We're actually there to help preserve it. So I feel like that's been something that's been really, really just eye-opening for me. Like, wow, I actually bear responsibility in the earth. I'm not just supposed to live on it and take from it. Absolutely. Yeah. So you, like many, are learning the lessons of this moment. And I think it's important that as leaders, we learn the lesson and we go back to work with a different mindset. Yeah. So that's well said. All right. What other thoughts or questions do you guys have out there? I'll say one more thing about what you just said, because it's on my heart and I have to say it.
Hey, Cappy.
You know, I've been talking about, you know, first seek to understand. You may have heard me say that before.
Mm-hmm.
Right? First seek to understand and see the good in others.
Yeah.
And I've been talking about this for years. And I think sometimes I felt like I was, you know, the tree that fell in the forest and no one saw the tree falling. But now the forest is on fire. And and so we've really got to understand these aren't just religious tenets, these are leadership tenets.
Yeah.
We've got to see the good in others. We cannot, when we go back to work, it cannot be employee 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is Helen. She has children at home. She has a grandmother. She has a mom. She sings in the choir at her church. She volunteers her time. Da 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 da. Whatever it is that makes Helen Helen, she's got to be able to bring her whole self to work, right? Mm-hmm. But if we see her as employee number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we will treat her as employee 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. And have a very transactional relationship with Helen. Yeah. Right? Can't do that anymore.
Nope.
Can't do that anymore. And Helen won't accept that anymore. Right?
Yeah.
We've got to be compassionate, empathetic leaders that see the good in others, and we seek to understand what's going on with them when they aren't at their best. People aren't going to be at their best when we go back to work. They're going to have some bad days. There are going to be some arguments that happen at work. How do we handle that? Do we just write them both up and say, yep, you committed this violation and, you know, it's black and white? No, we need to understand it, because how we treat people at their worst sends a message to everyone in that organization.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So just some food for thought.
Good.
All right. Any other comments?
We just have a lot of people agreeing with what we've been saying.
I think, you know, this is the morning huddle, and Mik, you and I had this conversation about the time of the morning huddle. And I think I'll push it back to 11, because that's still technically the morning.
You want it to be in the morning.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's called the morning huddle. It has to be in the morning. I'm sorry. So, but for those on the West Coast, you can catch it at 8 o'clock as opposed to getting up at 7. So when we do this again, we might do this Friday again. So we'll let you guys know. We'll send out an invite and let you know the time and the topic. And I want to thank Mik for joining me on my first Instagram Live. You've been a great co-host.
Anytime. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course, of course. I appreciate your support. I appreciate the support of everyone that tuned in. And look for the invite for the next show, guys, okay?
All right.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Take care. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.